This is perfect, as a sneaky signing in Minnesota is exactly what this Brian Flores defense needs, as he looks to reinforce this Vikings secondary with another veteran presence in the locker room that would bode so well for this team. We're going to be breaking out all that in this episode of Vikings Digest, but first, if you want to help us reach our goal of 1,500 subscribers before the end of OTAs and you want to stay up to date on all things Vikings, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you can stay up to date on everything. And with that, let's hop straight into the first topic and only topic today, which is a sneaky signing incoming. So despite one of the most active off seasons in franchise history, the Minnesota Vikings are set to enter training camp thin at a number of key position groups, most notably safety, cornerback, and defensive tackle. The competition at corner should be a storyline that carries the summer, as it's unclear who will emerge alongside Byron Murphy and Isaiah Rodgers. The safety battle will be just as intriguing, as defensive coordinator Brian Flores has routinely deployed 3 safeties during his time in Minnesota, and he currently has only 2 known commodities at the position in Harrison Smith and Josh Metellus. So we know that Flores, like the article was saying, he loves to just deploy all those 3 different safeties so that it gives him a lot more options as far as pass rushing, getting blitzers home, and being able to rely on these guys in pass coverage to get back quickly or to kind of disguise different looks. But Mo Moton of Bleacher Report is proposing a John Johnson signing, saying at safety, the Vikings have Harrison Smith and Josh Metellus in starting spots and not much behind them. 4th-year veteran Theo Jackson and 3rd-year pro Jay Ward have only played 285 career snaps combined. Johnson has experience at both safety positions, and he can also take on assignments in the slot. Last September, he suffered a hairline fracture in his scapula. Now healthy, the 29-year-old can fill multiple roles. So this would bring in a veteran presence to go alongside of Josh Metellus and Harrison Smith. We know this is going to be Harry's last ride, probably. So you want to make that as easy for him as possible. So you bring in a veteran who, yes, he is 29 years old. However, he might still have a little bit left in the tank, enough to go on one more run as well with Harrison Smith before hitting free agency again or something like that. This is a guy that you can sign to a 1-year deal as you develop Theo Jackson more, get him more confidence, get more snaps underneath him as well. You can rotate him in and out with Johnson unless it's a key moment where you absolutely need him on the field, or running with those 3 safety sets. But having him in as a 1-year guy to be an extra cushion of assurance with Harry's last ride, you go out and make this happen, because with the draft coming up next year or some other safety signings after next season, that could be where Minnesota could look to improve it and find that contingency plan or that replacement plan for Harrison Smith if Theo Jackson isn't ready to make the jump like some people are thinking he might not be able to, or unless he is able to just rise to the Vikings occasion where they have a lot of expectations of Theo Jackson. If he meets all those, that's perfect. But this is a case where if it's Harry's last season, you want to make sure this secondary and this safety group is as solid as it's ever been in his entire 14-year tenure, so that you can ensure that he just tries to do everything in your possible power on defense in the secondary to make sure that we're A, scary, and B, a championship caliber team. So with that, after passing on some big name safeties in both free agency and April's draft, a late veteran signing like this would make some sense. He flashed early on in his career as a starter on some good Rams teams, including a breakout season in 2018 during their Super Bowl run that ended in the loss to the Patriots. He wound up spending a 2-year stint with the Cleveland Browns before returning to LA in a more reserve role, and he still got some playing experience, as you saw in the picture from the intro, where he was locking up Jordan Addison in a game where the Rams just absolutely demolished us. And Johnson has had a productive 8-year pro career despite some recent injury-plagued seasons, racking up 562 tackles and 15 interceptions in 105 games, and was once rated among PFF's highest-graded safeties in the NFL. And this is a guy that, yes, with those injuries, he has still been producing. You look at the number of tackles that he puts up in a season. Even in a season where he only played 6 games, still with 51 tackles, with 24 of them being solo ones. And then even in some other ones, with two games with the Rams last season, and he still was able to manage 8 tackles, getting 4 of them on his own. And looking at the sacks as well, he's not much of a sack guy, only combining for 1 sack in his career. He still can force some fumbles when he needs to, and he is a interception machine at times, getting 4 in that season with LA with that breakout season, getting 3 with the Browns in his first year there, getting 2 seasons ago, getting 1 last year. But again, this is a Vikings team that led the league in turnovers last season, where we were the only team in the NFL that had a turnover in every single game on defense. So you bring in a guy like this where he can be an interception and turnover machine when he needs to be, much like Byron Murphy is, much like Cam Bynum was, and much like Harrison Smith is as well. So you bring in a guy like this where he has that big play potential, can make a lockdown happen or force a turnover or an incompletion. That is somebody you want in here, especially with, like I've been saying, Harry's last ride. You want to make sure this is as perfect as it can be. A guy like Brian Flores would absolutely benefit from a guy like this as well. So he can deploy a 3 safety set with Johnson, Metellus, and Harry. That would be pretty tough for defenses to A, read, and B, deal with once they either drop back in coverage or they even send one of them on a blitz. We know Harry likes to come off the blitz and can get a sack when he needs to, can get a strip sack when he needs to, or force a fumble on a running back. And that would be crucial where we can bring in these fake sets. You can even blitz one of them and have the other two drop back, but you blitz one of them so you bring in that speed and that finesse around the line where they can get around faster than a defensive tackle. They can get around faster than a middle or outside linebacker and make a disruptive play happen. So with that brings a lot of versatility where I don't know if Theo Jackson is fully ready to jump into that role. Again, him and Ward, they don't have a lot of combined snaps, not even 300 combined snaps between them, despite playing for a few seasons. I know injuries have plagued a few of them. However, with this, Minnesota has to look at this saying, hey, we are in a win now mode. We came so close last season as far as regular season goes. Playoffs didn't even get within a sniffing distance of a victory. Let's be honest here, folks. But we are still a championship caliber team if we can stay healthy and have the right holes filled where we don't have any pieces that are just lacking, or we have any passengers, so to speak, on this team. And no part of our team is Swiss cheese, essentially, because we've seen it happen over the years where the offensive line has been Swiss cheese for over a decade. They finally have now had it solidified where we have studs at every position. Defensive line, yeah, defensive tackle, we might not be able to keep Harrison Phillips around, but we still have Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave. So those are still really big guys, but still, we could still lock that down. Linebackers, we're set there. No more words need to be said with that. Van Ginkel, Grenard, Dallas Turner, those guys are absolute studs. Not even to mention the guys that we have in that secondary as well, with Byron Murphy and Isaiah Rodgers coming off a Super Bowl championship. So there's a lot of pieces here where Minnesota, we are looking very good. Like I've been saying for the past few weeks, I don't think that Minnesota Vikings have looked this good on paper. Again, on paper and on the field, like we've seen with the Chargers and the Bengals, are completely different things. But this is a case where on paper, the Minnesota Vikings have not looked this good since 2009, I would say. And it's been a long time since that. We had some all-star guys on that roster, and we finally have a team that maybe even better than that roster, where we have an offensive line that isn't going to take a lot of holding calls. I'm looking at Phil Lodeholt from that history lesson. I'm looking at Bryant McKinney as well, where he was a bit of a liability in those big games. But it was still a really solid offensive line where Phil Lodeholt, as much as the penalties that he took, that's the risk that you ran with a shutdown guy like that. Same with when we had Xavier Rhodes. A lot of people were very frustrated with the amount of pass interference calls that he would get, but that is the price that you pay when you get a shutdown corner. Discipline and not being able to take penalties are a very big thing. So with that, Minnesota has been able to move through these different ages of players where at different positions, where we had great rosters, but we've had position groups that have just been a little bit Swiss cheese. We are in a scenario right now where offensive line is set, receiving core is set, running back is set, quarterback at one position, at one piece of the depth chart is fully set, with a decent backup plan as well in Sam Howell, which we could see how that works on this Vikings roster with Kevin O'Connell being a quarterback guru, basically. Then you look at defensive line. We're pretty much set there. Linebackers, we're set. Corner and safety, those are the parts where we really need to lock that down. If you can bring in a guy that you can bring in for a 1 to 2 year deal where, yes, he's a bit older, but he's a veteran presence and he's somebody who has been to a Super Bowl, has won a championship as well, and can bring this home to Minnesota, where this could be a cherry on top of a position group that absolutely needs some reinforcements. But what do you guys think about all this? What do you guys think about Moten's comments? And what do you guys think about the idea of bringing in John Johnson III on a free agency deal? How many years would you give him? Would you just give him one to try and just give Harry a Lombardi and send both of them off on their merry way afterwards? Or you bring him in for 2 years as you look for that solution for the future, whether it's in the draft or a young signing or a young trade that you make? Let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments below. But that's going to do it for this episode of Vikings Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.